The room was small and silent except for the soft buzz of the camera. Two detectives sat across from a man in handcuffs. His name was Daniel Ross. He looked calm, too calm. A paper cup of water sat untouched in front of him. The red light on the camera blinked, recording every second. Detective Harper leaned forward and said, "You said you wanted to tell the truth, Daniel. Go ahead. We're listening." Daniel smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile that meant kindness. It was cold, like he was enjoying the moment. "You really want to know?" he said softly. The detectives glanced at each other. "We wouldn't be here if we didn't," Harper replied. Daniel looked straight at the camera. "You've already met me before," he said. "You just didn't know it." Detective Harper frowned. "What do you mean by that?" Daniel's eyes gleamed in the harsh light. "I worked with your daughter," he said slowly. Harper froze. The camera caught his jaw tightening. "What did you just say?" The man's smile grew. "She always said you were a good man. But she never told you about me, did she?" The silence in the room thickened. Detective Moore, the younger partner, whispered, "Turn that camera off." Harper shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "Keep it rolling." Daniel leaned forward, the chains on his wrists clinking. "You want the truth?" he said again. "Fine, I'll give you the truth. But once I start, you won't stop me." He looked right into the lens and whispered something that made both detectives freeze. The camera kept recording. And that was a moment, the interview that exposed a monster. But to understand how Daniel Ross ended up in that small gray room, we have to go back to where it all began. 2 weeks earlier, the people of Greenvale, Ohio, thought they lived in a quiet town. It was the kind of place where everyone waved at each other and left their doors unlocked. Nothing bad ever seemed to happen until the night of June 14th. It started with a missing person report. A 19-year-old college student named Laura Parker didn't come home after her evening shift at the diner. Her car was found by the side of the road, keys still in the ignition. Her phone was on the passenger seat, screen cracked, as if it had been dropped mid-call. At first, the police thought it was a runaway case. But when another girl disappeared 3 days later, panic spread fast. People locked their doors. Parents drove their kids to school instead of letting them walk. Every night, the local news played the same headline: 2 missing girls, police searching for clues. Detective Harper had been on the force for 20 years. He'd seen robberies, accidents, even murders. But something about this case felt different. The girls were all the same age. All of them were last seen near the same stretch of road. Then, one morning, a call came in. A jogger had found something near the woods, something that didn't belong there. It was a video camera, half buried under leaves. When Harper watched the footage, his hands went cold. The video showed the inside of a small workshop. There was a girl tied to a chair, crying softly. A man's voice, calm and low, spoke from behind the camera. "Smile for me," he said. The man never showed his face, but the way he spoke was almost polite. That was what made it so chilling. The audio cut halfway through, replaced by a faint hum. Harper stared at the frozen frame of the crying girl, her eyes looking just past the camera, like she could see someone behind it. That same night, police tracked the camera's serial number. It was registered to Daniel Ross, a maintenance worker at the local college. He was quiet, polite, and never missed a day of work. The next morning, Harper and Moore went to his house. They knocked. No answer. They circled around back. The shed door was locked tight with a heavy padlock. Harper broke it open. Inside, under a bare light bulb, they found something that made them both step back. A wooden chair sat in the center of the shed. Beside it, a camera on a tripod pointed straight at it. The red record light was still blinking. And there, sitting on a small table, was a student ID card. Laura Parker. Detective Harper felt the air leave his lungs. Moore whispered, "Oh my God!" Before Harper could respond, he heard the sound of footsteps behind them. Someone else was in the shed. And then, Harper spun around, gun drawn. The shed door creaked as a shadow stepped inside. "Put your hand where I can see them." Harper barked. The figure froze, raising both hands slowly. It was Daniel Ross. His blue work uniform was clean, pressed, and his face was calm. Too calm for someone standing in the middle of what looked like a crime scene. "You shouldn't be here," Daniel said quietly. His voice didn't shake. It sounded almost annoyed. Detective Moore kept his flashlight on him. "Step away from the table," he ordered. Daniel tilted his head slightly, eyes drifting toward the camera on the tripod. The red light was still blinking. "You're recording this too," he said softly. "How fitting." Harper grabbed his handcuffs. "Turn around, Ross. Now." Daniel didn't move. Instead, he looked at Harper and said, "You have a daughter, don't you?" Harper froze. "Don't talk about my family." Daniel smiled faintly. "She volunteers at the college library on Thursdays. Always brings a blue thermos. I think it's coffee. Or maybe tea." Moore's voice rose. "Enough. Get down on the ground." For the first time, Daniel looked afraid, but only for a moment. Then, as Harper stepped forward, Daniel whispered, "You won't understand unless you listen." That was the last thing he said before Harper tackled him to the floor. The struggle was short, sharp, and messy. The camera toppled over, the screen cracking against concrete. When it finally stopped shaking, the image showed Harper kneeling on Daniel's back, cuffs clicking into place. "Daniel Ross," Harper said through gritted teeth, "you're under arrest." At the station, Daniel said nothing. He didn't ask for a lawyer. He didn't ask for food or water. He just sat there, hands folded neatly on the table, staring at the blank wall like he was watching something play out in his mind. Detective Moore watched him through the one-way glass. "He's too calm," he muttered. "He's enjoying this." Harper rubbed his temples. "Then let's see how much he enjoys talking." They walked in. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the ceiling light. The red camera light blinked again, recording every word. Harper sat across from Daniel, staring him down. "You know why you're here," he said. Daniel nodded once. "Yes." "Then start talking." Daniel's eyes flicked toward the camera. "You want a story?" he said. "Fine, but you won't like how it ends." Moore folded his arms. "Try us." Daniel leaned forward, elbows on the table. "The girls weren't random," he said. "They were all chosen. They were kind." Harper's stomach tightened. "Chosen by who?" Daniel smiled. "By me?" Moore slammed his hands on the table. "You think this is funny?" Daniel didn't flinch. "No, but you asked me to talk, so I'm talking." He described things they didn't expect. The girls had all known him from work. He'd helped them with small repairs, offered to walk them to their cars, joke with them about exams. He made sure they felt safe until the night they didn't. As he spoke, Harper's hands curled into fists. "You recorded them?" he asked. Daniel nodded. "People believe what they see on screens. So I made sure they'd see everything." "Why?" Harper snapped. Daniel's eyes flickered toward the camera again. "Because truth isn't real until it's filmed." Moore leaned closer. "Where are the other girls, Daniel?" Silence. Then Daniel said softly, "You'll find them soon." That's when Harper noticed something. Daniel's wrist was smeared with what looked like paint. Except it wasn't paint. It was mud, dark and fresh. "Where did that come from?" Harper asked. Daniel smiled. "You'll see." Within an hour, a search team was combing the woods near his house. Dogs barked and flashlights swept through the trees. Then one of the officers shouted. Harper and Moore ran toward the sound. There, half buried under a patch of leaves, was another video camera, same make, same model. Harper crouched, wiped the lens clean, and pressed play. The footage began with a shaky shot of Daniel's workshop. Then the camera turned toward him. He was holding it himself, smiling faintly. "Some truths," he said in the recording, "can only be told once." The video cut to static. Moore looked at Harper. "He's playing with us," he said. Harper stood up, jaw tight. Then we play back. They returned to the station, where Daniel was still sitting calmly at the table. "You think this is a game?" Harper said, slamming the camera onto the table. "We found this in your woods." Daniel looked down at it, then met Harper's eyes. You watched it? Yes. Then you already know, Daniel said softly. Know what? Harper demanded. Daniel's mouth twitched into a grin. That it's not over. Before Harper could speak, one of the officers burst into the room, pale-faced. Detective, you need to see this. The footage, it's live. Harper's eyes widened. What do you mean, live? The officer pointed to the monitor in the evidence room. The feed wasn't recorded. It was streaming. Someone else was behind another camera, and they were watching them right now. Chapter 3. For a second, no one moved. The only sound in the room was the hum of the monitor and the slow click of the wall clock. Then Harper said, "Put on the main screen." The feed filled the monitor, a grainy live video of a dark room. There was a single chair in the center, lit by a hanging bulb. The walls were made of rough wood. A woman's muffled sobs echoed faintly through the speakers. Moore's voice cracked. "Is that one of the missing girls?" Daniel looked up for the first time, his face calm, his tone steady. "You're finally seeing it," he said. Harper spun on him. "Where is she? Where's that room?" Daniel smiled slightly. "You were in that place once today." The words hit like a punch. Harper froze, replaying them in his head. He had been in Daniel's shed earlier, searching through every inch. He thought it was just a workshop. Moore's voice rose. "He's saying the girl's still there." Harper turned to an officer. "Get every available unit back to that property. Now!" The officers rushed out, radios crackling. Daniel leaned back in his chair and said quietly, "You'll be too late." Harper slammed his hands on the table. "If she's hurt..." Daniel interrupted, his tone almost soft. "You don't understand, detective. The camera is part of the story. Without it, the story dies. You can't stop a story once it's started." Harper stepped closer, his voice low and tight. "You think this is some kind of movie? You think people will care what you did?" Daniel's smile faded. "They'll care," he said, "because you're in it now." 15 minutes later, Harper and Moore were speeding through the empty streets toward Daniel's house. The night air was thick with fog. Police sirens wailed in the distance, their red and blue lights flashing through the mist like ghosts. When they arrived, the property was surrounded. Officers moved with flashlights drawn, guns ready. The shed's door hung open, swaying slightly. The air smelled like damp wood and gasoline. "Check every inch," Harper ordered. Moore ran to the back, while Harper stepped inside. The chair was still in the middle of the room, just as before. The camera lay on the floor, lens cracked, red light still blinking weakly. "Harper," Moore shouted. "Over here." Behind the shed, they found a trapdoor hidden beneath an old rug. Harper ripped it open. A wooden ladder led down into darkness. The air below was cold and thick, like the inside of a cave. Harper climbed down first, flashlight shaking in his hand. At the bottom was a narrow hallway lined with concrete walls. He could hear soft crying. "Hello," he called. "We're the police." The crying stopped. Then a small voice answered, "Please, help me." Harper ran toward the sound and found a young woman sitting against the wall, wrists tied but alive. Her face was pale, eyes wide with terror. "It's okay," Harper said, kneeling beside her. "You're safe now." But before he could untie her, something flickered on the wall. A small camera light, red, blinking. Moore's voice echoed from behind. "He's watching us." Harper looked up at the camera. The red light blinked faster. And then, without warning, a voice came through a hidden speaker. Daniel's voice. Calm, smiling. "Detective Harper, I told you. Once the story starts, it has to end." A faint click echoed through the room. Then the smell of gasoline grew stronger. Moore shouted, "We got accelerant, get out now." Harper grabbed the girl and pulled her up the ladder. Flames roared to life behind them, swallowing the tunnel in seconds. The shed exploded in a burst of orange light, throwing them all to the ground. When the smoke cleared, firefighters swarmed the scene. The girl was shaken but alive. Harper sat on the curb, coughing, staring at the burning wreckage. "We had him," he said softly. "We had him locked up." Moore ran over, breathless. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "Daniel's gone." Harper blinked. "What do you mean gone?" "He escaped," Moore said. "Walked right out of the station during the chaos. The guards thought someone cleared him for transfer." Harper stood up slowly, the heat from the flames warming his face. He looked back at the destroyed shed, at the smoke rising into the dark sky, and whispered, "He planned all of this." Moore looked at him. "So what now?" Harper stared at the faint glow of the camera lens lying in the dirt, cracked but still blinking red. "We find him," Harper said quietly, "before he finishes the story." The red light blinked once more. Then it went dark.